Information fueled.
Opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you very much for joining us. Along with Johnny B, Ken Weaver, Dan Mandis here indeed. The Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. Want to welcome on into the program Katy Grimes. And Katy, you are writer for the California Globe. I believe you're an editor, actually. And you also wrote the book, California's War Against Donald Trump. And I wanted to have you on because you're, of course, based in California, I believe Sacramento. And so you would be well versed. There seems to be a lot of contradictory information regarding Kamala Harris when she was district attorney for San Francisco, attorney general for the state of California. Now, when she was a DA and an attorney general, you've got some people that say that she was soft on crime. You've got other people that say that she was tough on crime. Donald Trump said last night on Laura Ingraham that she put a lot of black men behind bars for marijuana, three strikes and are outlaw in California. I think that was part of what was going on then. So talk about Kamala Harris. Let's start with her time as a district attorney for the state of, for the city of San Francisco, 2004 to 2011.
Good morning, Dan, and thanks very much for having me on. What Kamala did when she was district attorney in San Francisco is she was soft on violent crime and very hard on drug crimes. And it really didn't have anything to do with our three strikes law at the time. She just went for low-hanging fruit to make her conviction and prosecution record look really good. And so she really was putting people in jail and in prison for really minor drug crimes, while our violent crime in California just continued to escalate dramatically.
Was there a reasoning why she would ignore violent crime? Is it perhaps, and I don't know this, I'm spitballing here, but is that harder to prove?
Yeah, it's a longer process. It's tougher to prove, and yet, and I really think it was that shallow. She really just wanted a good conviction rate, and drug crimes are very, very easy to convict. Whereas violent crimes take much longer and they're tedious. And my gosh, they have victims, and she'd have to deal with victims then.
A lot of evidence and that kind of thing that you have to cull through. So that's interesting. Yeah. And so when you look at her as a district attorney, and we all know that San Francisco these days is a complete and utter train wreck. This was back in 2004, 2011. Is there a legacy with Kamala Harris that has been partially led San Francisco to be the train wreck it is today?
Oh, absolutely. If she wasn't prosecuting violent crimes, that means those people were either released on bail or had no bail, were free to go. And the biggest problem we've had in San Francisco is that the city has gotten so violent over years. That was also during the time when Gavin Newsom was mayor. She was district attorney, and it was an absolute recipe for what, frankly, has led up to where we are today in San Francisco. It's like one giant no-go zone.
I remember there was an accusation hurled against her a while ago, and this has been sort of an ongoing theme, where she wanted to keep, and I want to know fact from fiction on this, she wanted to keep people incarcerated because that would keep this labor force going in California, because they use prison labor for certain things in California. They say that she wanted to keep, her office wanted to keep prisoners even after they were supposed to get out because she wanted to keep the labor. Talk a little bit about that. Is that true or false?
Well, actually, I'm going to have to do a little more digging on that one for you as well, because I've heard the same thing. I haven't seen any evidence of that, but what she was very known for doing, and so this wouldn't surprise me at all, is, she frankly weaponized her office, which I'm sure comes as no surprise. And she was kind of the ultimate quid pro quo district attorney as well as attorney general. When she was district attorney, she had been a girlfriend to California's very, very powerful assembly speaker, Willie Brown, and that he had several several very good friends that had been under investigation by the current district attorney in San Francisco ahead of her. So Willie Brown got together the money, put her up as a candidate, got her in as district attorney, and she made all their cases go away. And that's kind of how she operated. So if there was a powerful group in California that wanted this cheap prison labor, it seems like a bit of a stretch, but it wouldn't be beyond her to do something for them.
One of the interesting things, and of course people are always talking about, and I've talked about this ad nauseum on my show, but the Democrats are always so excited to talk about Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels. So my contention is that if you're going to talk about Trump and Stormy Daniels, then it is fair to speak about Kamala Harris and Willie Brown. And yes. he was married at the time, from what I understand, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's never been divorced.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
No, Willie, he must have an arrangement with his wife. Again, I don't know them, so I can't be sure. But yeah, he's never been divorced. And he for, decades was seen with beautiful women on his arms wherever he went.
So as Attorney General, Kamala Harris was Attorney General 2011 to 2017. After that, she ran for the Senate. But was there anything as an Attorney General, would you say that she was an effective Attorney General during her time in California?
Not particularly. Again, she weaponized the office and made it very political. And again, seeking to enhance her own personal record. She's very, very ambitious and was very, very disliked while she was Attorney General. I think there was a lot of turnover in her office at the time, kind of as we hear with her staff as vice president. But yeah, just politicized everything.
I guess part of what baffles me is that she got her start having an affair with Willie Brown, and she politicized the DA's office. She put a lot of black men behind bars. She was soft on crime as far as violent crime. Attorney General, again, politicizing the office. Then she ends up winning a Senate race. I mean, how do the people of California, I'm from California, by the way. How do the people of California keep voting for her if she has done all of these things to negatively impact the state?
Well, she's never actually been challenged. California is a one-party state these days. Yeah. It's got a Democrat super majority in the legislature. And so with Kamala's record, kind of similar to our governor, Gavin Newsom, never ever really accomplished anything in any of the public offices that they've held. But because it's a one-party state and they had the backing of very, very big money people, both of them have, they've just failed up every step of the way. There were really good candidates running against Kamala Harris when she was running for Attorney General. And yet she still won, even with her crappy record as district attorney. So when she ran for U.S. Senate, again, big money behind her. Again, San Francisco Bay Area, they usually get the backing of Silicon Valley.
Katy, let me ask you, when there's an article out today that says that Kamala Harris, when she worked for the Attorney General's office, when she was the Attorney General, she forced people to stand up and say, "Good morning, General." When she was walking into the office, you weren't allowed to look at her in the eye. You weren't allowed to speak to her unless you were a certain elevated staff member. And I mean, obviously, just clearly painting the picture of a not pleasant woman to work for. And people are actually terrified of her in the office. I mean, have you heard any of those kind of rumors in California?
Oh, absolutely. There's always been rumors about her being kind of this toxic queen bee. And I think we've certainly seen it on the national stage as well. She's got something like she's lost 92% of her staff.
Yes.
As vice president, which is unheard of, especially in politics. You would need to be surrounded by good people you can trust, people who are loyal to you, and yet she does the exact opposite. I will tell you, I covered her swearing in when she was in 2011, when she had just been elected Attorney General. And I was just talking with one of her staffers or handlers or somebody kind of in the back of the area where we were during the swearing in. And I said something, I used her name, Kamala. And the woman stopped me in my tracks and said, "It's not Kamala." And I looked at her and went, "We've been told it's Kamala." And she said, "No, it's Obama now. It's Kamala now." That's the kind of crap people had to deal with her.
That is amazing. And yet, again, it seems like she has risen through the ranks of politics. And it sounds to me like she has been banking on her race and gender the entire time, because she hasn't been effective as a prosecutor unless she's putting black men away for minor crimes. And she hasn't had a lot of opponents. She's had a lot of big money behind her, and she's unpleasant to work with and for. So I don't know. Seems to me like you would fear a Kamala Harris presidency.
Oh, quite. I mean, I've been writing about her for years, and lately I've even kind of regurgitated some of my articles from 2018 when, at that she had actually completely ignored that her highest ranking, her senior staffer, was involved in some pretty serious sexual harassment lawsuits. And she just tried to ignore it and make it go away. And the other thing that happened that was just stunning is while she was district attorney, she covered up for the San Francisco Archdiocese sex abuse cases, made them disappear, and there were hundreds. And so this is the kind of person that we're dealing with, and why people like me in California are trying to warn the rest of the country. We've been trying to warn the rest of the country. She never should have been chosen as vice president. And I think the only reason that the Biden people chose her is because she's simple-minded, she's malleable, she's a woman of color, and they thought they could control her. And not at all. Not at all. She's a simple-minded, ambitious political person.
Talk about your book, California's War Against Donald Trump. As a guy who lived in California for a lot of his life, and I'm no fan of California, trust me. What's your book about?
Well, I have a co-author, and in 2017, after Trump was elected, we were really noticing something going on in California, like even, as we said, with all of California's problems. I mean, you think about everything we're going through and have been going through. You know, we're a sanctuary state for illegal aliens. Yep. We have a third of the nation's poverty, a third of the nation's welfare lives here. And we have most of the nation's homeless people at this point also. But our politicians never, ever work on those issues. And those are serious quality of life issues that we have, day to day to deal with here. Our politicians decided everybody wanted to pretty much act like they were running against Donald Trump. And Kamala Harris was one of those. And so what we did is we just kind of went through the book and named all these major players in California and what they did, what they said, how they acted, the legislation they were introducing. It was such serious Trump derangement syndrome here in California for a state that had nothing to do with electing him. It was unbelievable. Wow. But I think it shows you also, A, we aren't electing our best and brightest anymore, that's for sure. And B, politicians today are just nothing more than soundbite machines. All they care about is getting clicks and headlines. And Kamala Harris is certainly one of those.
Do you think there's any hope for California, Katy?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Because everything that's happening here is just really bad policy. And part of the problem, though, is that we are a state of 40 million people, which is hard for other states to realize. And yet our legislature is about the same size as a lot of other states. So we have state senators representing over 1 million people each. We've got logistic problems on our hands, but yes, it can be fixed. It can be saved. It's just how bad does it have to get before people wake up? I am seeing people waking up, but I'm wondering how low we have to go.
Yeah, the problem is they're waking up and they're leaving California and they're coming here.
Well, yeah, we do have a lot of Californians leaving, no doubt. I write a lot about that. And yet the governor constantly turns around and says, we've got people moving into California, as if that's really offsetting anything.
Yeah,
they're congressional seat.
They're called illegals, Governor Newsom.
There's that. Yeah, no kidding.
All right, real quick, Katy, because I'm out of time. Great interview. I want to have you back. Does Steve Garvey have any chance of beating Adam Schiff for Dianne Feinstein's old seat?
Well, I do say that anything can happen in California. It is known as Crazyfornia, but I wouldn't hold your breath, sadly.
Too bad. All right. Well, thank you. Katy, I appreciate it. Will you come back?
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you.